it is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on...
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
They're stating it wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there's too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?
I am a raging patriot. Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. Hey, happy Thursday, right? Friday Junior. Well, I want to talk about a few things happening across the country. As you guys may have already seen in one of my videos, I made the big decision to homeschool my kids after talking to someone in the superintendent's office, and then somebody in charge of all of the school nurses and just someone high up in the school district. And they made my decision quite easy. I'll leave it at that. But you know, the one part that was a huge eye-opener is towards the end of my second conversation, the gal says to me, you know, really informed parents, such as you're trying to lead me to believe she was complimenting me. One, she was telling me I'm a pain in her ass and I should go elsewhere because I'm not going to just take their marching orders, especially when it comes to my children, not theirs. I don't co-parent with the government. And she was just basically encouraging me to go elsewhere. And I said, look, you made my decision to homeschool really easy. But I want to say it's the principle of the fact that I pay taxes into the public school education system for an education, not indoctrination. And that's when she pretty much said, well, you can call the principal if you have any other questions. And I ended the conversation. I let her know she made it really easy for me and we will be homeschooling. And you know what? It feels really, I feel so empowered. And one of the upsetting things is the kids' school is literally a 3-minute walk from our house. We bought this house with that intention of making that life really easy. And but you know what? It's come to the fact that I just don't trust that they have my child's well-being at the forefront of what they're doing any longer. And so I've connected with so many parents that have made this decision for the first time. A lot of first-time homeschoolers they're all over the place. I mean, we're all in this together. It takes a village, and it just comes down to, are you willing to sacrifice convenience, to sacrifice life as you currently know it, to do what's right, and to live a free life? And that leads me to a lot of videos that I'm seeing all over social media and a ton on TikTok where people are being fired or they're having to quit left and right because they are not willing to take the vaccine. And it really made me ask myself, and I already know the answer, but are we willing to lose our jobs? Are we willing to get fired due to really upholding our personal beliefs? If you know, like I've talked about this so many times, if you want to get the vaccine, then get it. That is your decision. But if you don't, you should not be forced into getting it. And what's happening right now is incredibly frightening, where it's going to drive this huge wedge. And I know President Trump always talked about the fact that the left really wants to get rid of the middle class. And when I think of what's happening right now, where the majority of the free thinkers are right of center, and those are the people that are being impacted by vaccine mandates for the most part. So what's happening is when you lose your job or you're now dependent on unemployment, depends on how that goes down, you go from middle class to low income in most cases. And so this wage gap is being driven, and those that are right of center are the ones primarily being impacted by this. And it's really scary to see what's happening. And what I want to see, and if any of you listening are employers, please do not feel like you need to appease anybody. I'm pretty sure everyone following me doesn't feel the need to appease, but stick to your guns and allow associates to make their own decisions with what they do with their bodies. It's really scary. Just before hopping on this evening, I saw that a school district, I believe it was Culver County or Culver School District in California, they are mandating that their students 12 and up cannot go to in-person school unless they are vaccinated. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. We all know there is a West Coast pact between Washington, Oregon, and California. And when something happens in one of those three states, you just hold your breath and it's going to happen in the other two. They all work together. Their timelines are maybe a month or two apart, but they all work together. So the fact that this happened in California, anyone else along the West Coast, and especially the East Coast as well, it's coming to you. So you have to prep and you have to set boundaries on what are you willing to accept? What are you willing to do? Are you willing to go off grid to protect your family, to protect yourself? Are you willing to have a smaller home, an older car? Are you willing to make these big life-changing decisions to protect your freedoms and to ensure that the U.S. Constitution at least applies to you still? You can do things to where you don't fall into their trap. It's very difficult these days. I'm going to look at some of my comments here. Be prepared for the red flag against the U.S. Exactly. You know, there's something happening live right now, and I haven't been on the news in the last 45 minutes or so, so I don't know where this has gone, but with a white man in a truck says there's 4 other people with bombs all around the U.S. Capitol building. The first thing that popped in my mind was false flag. Yes, audit news almost ready. I hear it's going to be pretty wild, but I'm trying not to get my hopes up. But that's concerning Arizona. Arizona audit news almost ready. And I believe that I just saw we have another state. Is it Wisconsin, or I'm trying to think which one it was, but they're going to do a full-blown audit just like Arizona. So they have that blueprint ready, and they're going to be going for it. So big things to come. Drew says we're buffering. That's a bummer. But you guys, we've got some really big things happening. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I really think what it comes down to is be prepared. Just have not only with items and survival items, but be mentally prepared. Set your boundaries and talk to your families. Do you know how many people have reached out to me on Instagram saying that their wife is pushing them to get vaccinated because the wife is going to get vaccinated, and so that she's I've had probably 24 in the last week, people asking my opinion. Meddling in a marriage is never great, so I always say, hey, this is just my measly little opinion. But this is not only tearing families apart, there are marriages that are at stake because of this decision. Because if you choose to not be vaccinated, what's happening right now is you are completely being isolated. They're pushing you out of society every single day. A 50-state forensic audit, that would be incredible. But it's all right. Let's see what Wade has to say. I hear the leader of the Taliban is running for president in 2024 to have Biden as the VP. I have to say, okay, I try to see the humor in things too. Did you guys see the Taliban members on the gym equipment? I mean, seriously, that was one of the most horribly comical things I've seen in a long time. Yeah, that's insane. So we have a great guest that is coming on today, you guys, and he's going to be here very shortly. So hang tight. But meanwhile, let's chat, and I'm going to address some of your questions that you have here. But wow, yeah, lots of crazy stuff happening. I served in Afghanistan. What's happening now is sick. I can't even begin to imagine for those that have served in Afghanistan. I'm sure you feel like, what the hell was the point? I sacrificed so much. Now, what's the point? And then people like Dan Crenshaw, who I don't respect, I don't respect him because I think he's a big rhino, but he's trying to make everyone feel better by saying, oh, well, you did that to ensure there wasn't another 9/11, which maybe there is some truth to it. But I also think you are allowed to have those feelings. You are allowed to feel like, what the hell was I doing there? You are allowed those feelings. They are valid. Biden sold Afghanistan to the CCP. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely, my thoughts were definitely Biden was instructed by the CCP to pull out, to just yank everybody out, leaving them completely vulnerable. And the plan was already in place, and they take over. And what's next? And now we're being encouraged not to do business with Taiwan. China's wanted to take over Taiwan for some time. So it's all, the dominoes are falling. And for the precious metals, yeah, there's so many minerals in Afghanistan. It's really, really sad, really sad. I couldn't sleep Sunday night or Monday night. I was just so sick to my stomach over what I was seeing. We pulled air support from ANA. That's why they collapsed. I don't know what ANA is. I should. I'm not going to pretend to, but it's just absolutely, absolutely horrible, you guys. And for those of you who did serve, especially over in Afghanistan, like I said, your feelings are valid. Your feelings of frustration and anger. Biden wants electric vehicles, batteries, all CCP. Yeah. I had lunch with a friend yesterday, and he was saying his dad was trying to convince him. He just went to China, I guess. His dad was trying to convince him that, that communism actually looked pretty good, that they get shit done over there. And I'm thinking, God, that's sick. If you actually think that communism looks good, that's just wacky to me. Afghanistan, thank you. Afghanistan National Army. Thank you. That's helpful. Juan just wrote me a note too. He's like, Afghanistan National Army. I appreciate you guys. It takes a village, right? Oh, hey, we've got John here. Exciting. All right, you guys. Well, enough of that topic. We're going to bring our special guest in. We have John Tobacco. We're good. We have John Tobacco, and he is a newscaster and show host for Newsmax. And he's been with Newsmax for 4 years, a little over 4 years. And he has a new show that he's 3 episodes in on. And so we're really excited to bring him on, not only to promote his new show so that you guys start listening, but to get to know who he is and what drives him. You guys know I really like to do that. And so I think we're about ready here. Hey, John, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing well.
All right, awesome. All right, Andrew's like, Newsmax. So on my show, we have people popping up their commentary live, so I try to work it in. It's really fun, pretty interactive.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah. It keeps you on your toes, I'll tell you that much. So, excellent. All right, John, love your accent. I'm married to a Long Island boy, and and my dad's from the Bronx. Both of their accents from living here in Oregon, they're gone, like pretty much gone. And I'm like, come on. So when I was listening to some of your bits today before the show, I was like, yes, that's it right there. So I love it.
Everybody has. Awesome. I've been doing a lot of great radio and other talk shows to promote Wise Guys, and it seems like everybody has a story that's one step removed from some relative or family friend that was from New York and has a similar accent. So we're tapping into something that's, I think a little bit of a fascination in America, Italian Americans. But it's just on Wise Guys, it's, regular folks talking about the real stuff people want to talk about. And it's many people saying it's refreshing to just hear, what people think instead of propaganda.
Exactly. Absolutely it is. Well, let's do this. I really want to know why you are who you are today. What drove you? Who was an influence in your life to make you this great patriot? Let's hear it.
Well, I'm a humble man, so thank you for saying I'm a great patriot, but I'm trying to be great, that's for sure. And, I like that you asked that question, and I don't have to do a lot of prep on it because, both my parents, my dad was a New York City cop. My mom ran a small family sporting goods business that we had, and they both took a lot of time out of their life to engage in local community and charitable works. My father was the president of a little league, president of Pee Wee Football League, high school football coach. My mom, the world of women on the PTA, and they always made a point to let us know, even though you think we're blessed and we're doing good, you gotta always give back to you, and you gotta fight for what our ancestors gave us here. And they were very patriotic. They taught me and my brothers to be like that. And I love New York. I love Staten Island, New York. Many people think because I have such a thick accent, I'm just a straight goomba, but I'm actually half Irish. And I'm proud of my Irish heritage, too. And that's one of the great things about Staten Island that's not portrayed out there. We usually get a bum rap, but it's a great melting pot of a lot of different heritage, races, religions, and it's really a little speck of Americana, if you know about it.
I love it. I love it. Well, you know what? I lived in Astoria, Queens for almost 2 years. And it was funny. I worked in the Empire State Building, and the team that I worked on, they would always be like, "Hey, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oregon." They're like, "No, like, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Portland, Oregon." And they were like literally wanting to know like my heritage, and which on the West Coast is not a thing. Like you don't really just say, "Yeah, I'm Scottish." You know what I mean? It's like in New York, you
That's
are
because
your
everybody's got
ancestors.
it. They already know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. Let me go take a DNA test and I'll let you know, which I eventually did because I was so curious. But it was so funny. I got asked that so often. So that's definitely New York culture for sure,
Yeah,
which is
well, I'm
great.
proud of. We play around with the stereotype a little bit on Wise Guys. Even the name of the show is a little tongue in cheek, but we get some wise guys and very wise women on the show, and it makes for insightful conversation. It's kind of no holds barred. There's no scripts. There's no teleprompters. I throw a topic out there, and we got the attorney, but he's the first person in New York to bring a law against Bill, which he filed it yesterday. So we'll be talking about that, constitutionality of vax mandates and segregation of people, and asking business owners to become edict enforcement officers at the peril of thousands of dollars of fines when they've already been crushed in the last year and a half by the overreach. So, also this week we have Vito Fossella. He's a candidate for Staten Island Borough President here, and he was a 6-term congressman from Staten Island. And one of the things we're comparing that's a little crazy is, you have blue cities and blue states trying to lock people down again, put them in masks, vaccinate the kids, this whole darn kit and caboodle. And at the same time, hundreds of thousands of people pour across the border with no checks for vaccination, no masks, no nothing. You start to think you're living in, the Truman Show or Bizarro World or something. It can't be right. We have to wear a mask and get vaccinated to go get a hamburger. And these folks can sneak in the country through the back door illegally, and they're not subject to any of the same constraints and restraints that have been put on us by the government. I think people are starting to stand up, to be honest with you.
Yes, I am seeing that too. And I was happy to see last week that New Yorkers are taking it to the streets concerning the vaccine passport. Because the first week that it rolled out, I was like, "Come on, guys, let's get out there." And then it looks, at least from where my perspective, it looks like they're getting out there, boots on ground, which is really good to see.
Yeah, that was me, and the New York Alliance for Medical Freedom, and Cara Castronova, who's also one of my panelists on Wise Guys. She's the founder of Citizens Against Political Persecution, and her group and the Freedom Alliance and many groups came together to say, hey, we got to raise our voice a little bit. We got the permits. And we're actually having every single Monday for the next few weeks protests right outside Bill de Blasio's office. And last Sunday we were right outside Gracie Mansion. And little by little, the voices are getting raised. But the next step is, there's got to be some kind of civil disobedience to get their attention. But there's ways to legally engage in civil disobedience. And a lot of people calling me up, what can we do? Well, if we don't get the justice system to help us with a lawsuit, who knows what people will do.
Right, exactly. No, you're spot on. And you definitely don't have a shortage of material to talk about on your show, especially being in New York. I mean, I saw that de Blasio put something in place where if you don't commit a crime for 30 days, you get $1,000. And this is for existing criminals. Like you or I wouldn't qualify. Well, maybe you would. I don't know. But
whoa. Well, listen, my case is still pending, and I'm innocent until proven guilty, of course. But it's just ludicrous. Yesterday in New York, unsuspecting white male went to an ATM to get a few bucks out, and then some maniac person walks in and splits his head open with a hatchet. Right in the middle of New York City, the financial district, where there's tons of cops and security, but the guy almost got killed. He didn't die, thankfully, but at the same time, the crime is so out of control here that people's quality of life is being crushed. At the same time, he wants to fine business owners $2,000 if they don't ask their loyal customers to see their vaccine cards. And it's just, it's just, they give people Mets tickets if they show up for a court hearing. That's like worse penalty than going to jail, going to a Met game. If you think about it,
I did not know about that. They are literally giving Mets tickets if you show up. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Talk about pandering.
If they show up for your court hearing, they give you Met tickets, okay, which is a pain.
I want to see that audience. Make them sit in one section so I can see that audience. Oh my gosh!
The continuation. It's the continuation of a socialist agenda being foisted on us in every single way. These elitist and Illuminati type folks, they engage in the mentality where they say, would I turn this stove on if my friend Muggsy were inside? You might, Rabbit, you might, and they're doing it to us. So, I shows like yours, shows like mine, where real people could talk about how crazy this stuff is. I think it's keeping some people sane, that there's still voices out there like us. And at the same time, I keep telling people, you got to tap one more person on the shoulder and say, come on, we're going to the rally. We're going to the protest. More importantly, we're going to vote,
Yes, absolutely. That's what it's about. Like I've been doing this for about a year now. And what I'm really trying to work with people that follow me on Instagram and YouTube. And it's like, okay, let's turn our disgust and our frustration into action and then provide those next steps. Like, what can you do? I belong to Free Oregon, and that's exactly what Free Oregon does. And it's like, it's all about turning all of our frustrations into actions, and it's spelt out like run for these openings on these boards, right? So and you're so right, we have to put ourselves out there. The silent majority, I have no respect for the silent majority. We can't be silent any longer. So we have to tap and poke the bear, if you will, to wake people up.
No way. Yeah, there's no such thing anymore. The silent majority actually had some kind of power because it actually worked as a silent majority without having to speak up. They just spoke. The will of the people, the mob rule, the plurality of the people. Referendum almost worked, and that was the silent majority. That you can't be silent anymore because the silence leads to pluralistic ignorance, they call it, when you kind of look around and say, I know this isn't right, but everyone else is walking around like this is right, and in the privacy of your home you're like, this ain't right. Right. So I think has to break that mold right now and say, in public, in their workplace, in their business, sorry, this ain't right. I'm not asking my friends and my customers and tourists and people that are going to feed my family to show me their medical records and whether or not they received a vaccine that's unapproved. And as it stands today, there's not even a chairman of the FDA, so it doesn't look like it's getting approved anytime soon.
That is very interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. It's like we're approving the booster, but still no FDA approval on it. Quite interesting there. Well, we have just a few minutes left here, and I just can you tell the viewers where they can find you, and then what times your show runs?
Okay. So look, you know, us New Yorkers, we're 3 hours ahead of you guys. So Wise Guys is seen at 10 o'clock Eastern here in New York and on the East Coast. So I guess by you guys it will be 7 p.m. Eastern. And you know, every week we take a kind of irreverent look at what's happening in politics in the world, and we have a little fun with it. We talk about things that are important to just regular people, and like I said, great panel of experts every week, regular folks who, you know, a lot of these networks, they have these guys that just paid talking heads. They've never really accomplished anything except to be a talking head and know how to read off of a teleprompter. We're bringing in people who serve their community, their country, people that are experts in the field of law, community activism, who kind of roll up their sleeves, you know, rubber meets the road type people, and we're weighing in on what we can do. And I appreciate you guys at KSOK giving me a shot to come on and try out the uncensored world. I hope you will have soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. I have to tell you one thing before we disconnect here is that I met my husband. He was NYPD. You mentioned your father was NYPD. So my husband was NYPD, and I was just on vacation as an Oregon tourist. And now we've been married 13 years. So kind of a fun little connection there. But I have a lot of respect for them.
It's one of the things, you know, it's not very sexy or rive gauche right now to support the police, but it's one of the things I do at every one of my rallies, and every chance I can, I wear my NYPD hat wherever I go, because it's one of the proudest things I have. My dad taught us a lot of things about life, about the streets, and about how to respect enforcement and be respected by law enforcement. So we do have a good connection there, because NYPD, to me, those great men and women are the best fighting force on earth.
Yes, they are. I completely agree with you. Well, thank you so much. And please thank your father for his time on duty. All right. Thank you very much. All right, you guys, what a great guest. That was so much fun. It's funny. I'm the cliche one that ties it back to my father and my husband with the New York accent, but it is fun because it's just like, it's so unique. Can't help myself. But you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a great guest lined up for next week as well. And John was so entertaining and so fun and so real. He's just a great American, and please tune into his show. Also, following me, we have the Loaded Mic with Dan Wos. And then after the Loaded Mic, we have the Counterculture Mom. And then also something to know. So this week we have Ram TV and Savvy, if you guys know Savvy from The Savvy Truth. And we have Jen, I think it's Charlton, I'm probably saying that wrong, from Success Happens, but they are covering a conference in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so if you go on ramtv.live, you'll be able to watch the interviews and the exchanges that are happening. So that's going to be really exciting to watch over the weekend. And that's going to be airing from 10 a.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern time. So please check that out on our website. And then also, I look forward to seeing you guys next Thursday. I literally adjusted my camping trip to leave a day later so I can get that chance to connect with you guys. I appreciate you, and you have a great evening. All right. Thank you.
Trump sues big tech. Neiman Marcus gets looted, and Joe Biden shows up at your door with a vaccination needle. This is the Loaded Mic, and I'm Dan Wos. you're listening to The Loaded Mic. 4th of July weekend always brings a lot of activity in Democrat-run cities. So this 4th of July weekend, Lori Lightfoot's Chicago was particularly festive. I know what you're thinking. Fireworks displays, cookouts, block parties, people dancing in the streets and celebrating Independence Day. Well, if that's what you're thinking, you're wrong. 4th of July weekend in Chicago was extremely active because people were killing each other. This 4th of July weekend, 2021, 18 people were murdered, 100 people were shot. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could that be? With all the gun restrictions in Chicago, that's impossible. Well, there are a lot of gun restrictions in Chicago. There's a background check system. They have a so-called assault weapons ban. There's an extended waiting period to purchase a firearm. And they even have red flag laws where people or where police authorities can go to your house and confiscate your guns without due process or just cause. The only way they can confiscate your guns from your home is if they know where guns are. And in other words, the only guns they know of are the good people who choose to purchase their firearms legally and are forced to register them with the government. So how do all these murders happen? Well, I think it's pretty clear. The bad guys, the gang members, and those who don't value life also pay no attention to the gun laws in Chicago. So what does Lori Lightfoot choose to do as a solution to these maniacs who don't follow gun laws and kill people? Well, more gun restrictions, of course, because we see how well that works. The truth is, gun restrictions do not work to stop killers. If a killer is willing to take a life in cold blood, do you really think they will obey the law and get a background check, for instance, before acquiring a firearm? Well, the answer is no. And Lori Lightfoot knows this. So we have to ask ourselves, what are Democrats doing to actually stop human violence? The answer is nothing, but they do use the human violence that they perpetuate to push for more gun regulations on good people. They make good people vulnerable and do nothing to stop the bad guys. So the real question is, why? How is it that they can see the violence in their own cities and see that gun restrictions do nothing to stop violence? As a matter of fact, the gun restrictions enhance the violence because good people are rendered unarmed and helpless. And how is it that they can continue to do nothing to solve the problem of human violence? That's what we're going to talk about today on The Loaded Mic. And I'm here with John Chiara.
Hey, Dan.
And so I wanted to see what your thoughts are on Lori Lightfoot and her idea that more gun restrictions are going to solve the problem of Chicago murders. And, I mean, because the thing is, look, here's the thing. As Joe Biden would say, here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
When you take guns away from good people, and not necessarily take them away, but if you make them hard to get, the people in these cities like Chicago are not going to be able to defend themselves. And 100 shootings in Chicago over 4th of July weekend.
Right.
What is this, Afghanistan?
Maybe they should hand out fireworks. You probably can't buy fireworks in Chicago, I'm assuming, right? Probably not.
Probably not.
Maybe they should
shoot each other with bottle rockets? It would be safer. I guess maybe just put an eye out.
Sparklers.
I'm going to get you with my sparkler. So, but, you know, it just goes back to that typical anti-gun ideology. I honestly think from watching, you can't listen to what they say because they'll say one thing but do another thing. But from watching their behavior, typically Democrat governors in these cities like Chicago, New York City, Washington, D.C., Newark, New Jersey, you name it, they say that they want to stop violence, but they do nothing to stop. Now, you think after all this length of time that they would have figured out, well, geez, these gun restrictions aren't working to stop the bad guys because the bad guys are paying no attention to it.
Exactly.
And we're making good people unable to defend themselves. So I always look at it like, initially I would thought, well, they haven't figured it out yet. They're still working on it. But this has been going on for decades, and they're not stupid people. There's an agenda here. My thought is that they like the high numbers, the high murder rates, because it gives them more fuel to push for more gun restrictions. If they can keep the blame on the guns,
right,
they can use every single death that they cause to push for more gun restrictions. And it's just a cycle. They see it happening.
Well, that happens in all parts of politics for so many on the left. It's like they don't really want to fix anything because the problem is what they need. Like Black Lives Matter. They pretty much admit that. We don't want to solve the problem. We need this as an issue. We need this issue to stay alive because that's what gives us
validity.
It gives us a platform to talk to people that people have accepted as being important.
Yeah, like, so think about that. What if it was impossible to fool the people that there's this so-called systemic racism anymore? Mm-hmm. What if people just, every time they heard it, they laughed at it because they knew it was ridiculous? And people, black people, white people, just got together and said, you know what, screw this. We're not going to pay attention to the division. We're not going to let it divide us. And what if all of a sudden Democrats didn't have that issue?
Right.
Then what?
They would have nothing.
They would have nothing.
Well, see, part of the one theory on how to work against these things is to take the side of these people and play it out to the most extreme outcome. Like, say, talking about critical race theory or something. Okay, I love critical race theory. We should have more of it. Let's teach our kids critical race theory. And more importantly, if we want that to be complete, let's take all the information that we're teaching the kids and give all that information to parents. Then everybody will know all about critical race theory.
Oh, but they don't do that.
But they won't do that because that would short circuit the whole control issue that we're talking about. They need that for their power because they need to have that stuff over there that we can never quite get to, that we have to keep as the boogeyman. You know, it's got to be, we have to deal with this stuff because it's very important. Gun violence, racism, white supremacy.
And once the parents know, we see what's happening across the country. Parents are going to their school board meetings, and they're pissed.
Thank God. That's what they should be doing, right?
Yeah.
Speak up.
Yeah.
Speak up, everybody.
Yeah, that woman, Tatiana, I forget what state she was in. She Jersey? I don't know. I forget where she was, but she really laid into the school board. And it's true. I mean, more parents are doing that now, and more groups of parents are getting together to go up against their school board. I don't understand these people on these school boards, where do they get the arrogance to think that they can talk down to the parents and teach those people's kids whatever they want? The arrogance has just become so over the top. I don't understand. Do they not recognize that it's not their place?
Well, maybe they haven't gotten enough pushback, which is why what we're talking about is important. Because if you have enough parents in your school district that are expecting the school to just do everything for the kids because they can't or they won't or they don't know how, and they're just accepting whatever the school says is true.
Yeah.
You know, they're not looking into it. They're not paying attention to what the kids are being taught. And if the school decides not to let the parents see what the kids are being taught, it's kind of a conspiracy in a way, you know. It's like, let's brainwash all these little kids and not let their parents know what's going on.
What kind of person has to have pushback to do the right thing?
I don't know.
And how do these people? I mean, you know what's good and bad, what helps the kids and what doesn't. You know, you have to be some kind of high-level moron to believe that dividing people again, we already went through this decades ago, dividing people again by skin color is going to somehow be a good thing. You really have to be stupid. I can't think of another word. You really have to be either stupid or understand exactly what you're doing and understand that you're doing it for a higher political agenda.
Right. And I think some people understand that. And I think maybe enough people are not speaking up so that just permeates the whole system until we get to where we are now, where some parents are finally saying, well, this is not right. I'm gonna push back. But I think, you know, I mean, Well, parents have things going on in their world. I mean, I assume that many parents don't put a high priority on. We're going to pay really close attention to what our kids are doing in school. I want to know exactly what they're learning every day. Bring all your work home. Let me see what you're doing. I'm assuming a lot of parents aren't in a position
and for so
to do
long
that.
you didn't have to.
Right. Or so we thought anyway.
Right.
But for the last 30, 40 years, that's been seeping down from the universities and all this postmodernism stuff that people just assume is the right way to go. And now we're finding out that, well, again, and like you said, I mean, I hate to say people are stupid, but most people don't have any idea how to analyze any kind of data. This isn't working. Okay, what do? Double down, do more of it. Well, this isn't working now. What do? Double down, do. And the gun restrictions are a perfect example of that. If all the gun laws that we've put into place for the last 50 years worked, why are we still complaining about stuff? Or are the situations bad enough where we should be complaining about it? Or are there other ways to go about it so we can fix these things? Because I don't know about you, but I would love to see a problem or two fixed. Wouldn't that be great? We could fix immigration and we could fix, all these shootings and stuff. That would be great.
Well, we
but
could.
I don't see. I think we can too, but not by doing what we're doing.
And it's so frustrating because what we call, you and I are sitting here talking about this stuff, what we call a fix is not a fix to the political left. It's a roadblock to them because their agenda is different. So in other words, so for gun restrictions, we talk about gun restrictions. So what you and I say, okay, we see all this violence, in New York, let's say, for instance, and I can get to this Cuomo deal, but let's say Albany, New York, we see all this violence, and we see a portion of it where guns are being used to commit it.
Right.
So rather than look at the actual cause of why people are doing this, we talked about this on the show yesterday, and we can get back into some of that stuff, or not yesterday, last week. What's the cause? And we talked about, gang violence, we talked about the welfare system and all this stuff.
Right.
We could fix the problem. If the problem is people killing each other, human violence, we can solve that problem, or we can at least fix it and make it better.
Right.
To us, that's the problem.
Because we define that as the problem.
We define that as the problem, but to them, that's not the problem. The real problem is too many American citizens have guns, and that affects their political positioning.
Right.
It affects their political leverage. So what we see. Go ahead, comment on that, because
I know where you're going. I often ask when I hear all these. There's been 4 shootings in Albany last week. Really? Were they legal guns? Legal gun owners? Who shot these people? Let's see the names. Come on, give us the serial numbers of those guns. Let's see who owns that baby.
Well, and that's another thing. There's a local city here, and I won't say what city, in New York, who because I'm going to do something about this. I'm working on this with. So I don't want to say anything, but there was a local city here in New York who had I wasn't even going to talk about this, but they just declared that they're solving this so-called gun violence, and the proof is that they found a ghost gun. So I'm going to be in the near future here, I'm going to be working on ghost guns and the narrative around ghost guns and how there's no such thing as ghost guns. But they use this term, ghost gun. They created the term because...
And what does that mean?
Well, they're calling guns that are untraceable. They don't have a serial number. Maybe they're homemade. Maybe they're...
So illegal guns.
Yeah,
technically.
Illegal. So they want people to think, hey, we're doing something. We're helping you. We're stopping this so-called gun violence, and we found a ghost gun. All that is a gun that's not serial numbered. It's not attached to some government registry or list. That's, frankly, the way it should be. The government has no business knowing what guns I have, and knowing the serial numbers, knowing my personal information, knowing where those guns are because they know where I live. The government has no business. In 1791, when the first 10 amendments were ratified
Back in the day.
there were no serial numbers,
Right.
no government registries. Right. How did we get to the place where cops are now saying, we found a ghost gun, and people are going, yay, get those ghost guns. It's so ridiculous, and I have so much more to say on this topic, but I won't say it today. I'm working on an article, so I'm really piecing this article.
Sounds like a pretty good rabbit hole there to go down, like ghost gun.
But anyway, I forget what brought me to that, but the problem is they're not solving the problem, the real problem. They're trying to solve their problem.
Well, see, because they think it's a gun problem, they automatically go where there's a lot of guns, right? Which are legal gun owners. But
yeah.
That's not logical. If those guns aren't causing any problems, then it's obviously not the guns, right?
Right.
Obviously. Statistically, it's not the guns. Impossible to say that.
And let me chunk that down a little bit. You said because they think the problem is guns. And the word think is critical here because some people in some lower governments and cities, maybe in towns and some county boards and things, town boards and things like that, they might think the problem is guns. But the people pushing the agenda at the top, governors and their council and state legislators and federal legislators and Congress people, they understand that the problem is not really guns.
Right.
So that word think, because they think the problem is guns, it only applies to half. And this is where the conversation gets really complicated because it applies to half of them. Yes, half of them might think that guns are the problem, but the other half know that guns are not the problem. They understand.
The people that understand numbers know that it's not. That's not the problem.
And understand the policy
right.
that they're putting forth because they can see their policy. They can see how taking the cops out of, let's say, taking the cops out of a city or defunding the cops or telling the cops to stand down. They see the immediate direct result of that. Right?
Not complicated.
Crime doesn't go down when you remove cops. Crime goes up when you remove cops.
Those criminals, I'll tell you.
So when you say they think the problem is guns, like I said, I just want to be clear that is only a portion of people, stupid people, who think that the problem is guns.
Right.
The smarter people who have a higher political agenda to achieve, they know that the problem is not guns. Okay, there's my point.
And they know that half the people think that it is, so they just play
so
on
they keep
that.
going. Exactly,
yes. Power, right? It's just, it
yes.
feeds on itself. It's pretty transparent.
Exactly, good point. They know that a lot of people, right, they know that
because they keep saying it, you know? And I mean, how many times, I've seen the term gun violence probably 15 times in the last week on different newscasts. And I'm like, why do they keep using that word?
Because it works.
Why do they keep using that terms? Like assault rifle. Why do they keep using those terms?
Well, now you're going to start seeing a lot more ghost gun. Ghost gun is going to be the new term.
Okay.
Because, and this is the stuff I'm going to talk about in the article, and I don't want to really talk about this, but I have to now because you got me going on it. But the term ghost gun is going to be used to represent guns that are not registered. Okay. So because the ultimate goal is to get all guns registered through universal background checks. So the universal background, so they say, well, we'll see, we found one, but it will be much easier for us if guns were registered. So let's make sure that we pass whatever laws necessary to get all the guns registered. And the way we can do that is through universal background checks.
Where do they think those guns come from?
Yay, go Democrats. Yes, we want more universal background checks. So that's the game. So then, okay, so let's talk about universal background checks equals a gun registry because ultimately they're going to have the access through the background check system to know where all the guns are. Bring in the red flag laws, and now you've got the tool to confiscate guns with the red flag law, and you've got the means to do it through the universal background check registry. The culprit here is these ghost guns. So you're going to hear a lot more. My point is you're going to hear a lot more about ghost guns.
Well, it's pretty convenient, though. It's another one of those boogeyman things that we can never really figure out what's going on or how to fix it. But boy,
my God,
this is really important. Let's put it on the news every night. Ghost guns. I'll be watching for it.
I can't believe it. Oh, my God, where are these ghost guns? It's so spooky. I'm so scared of these ghosts. Am I going to get possessed by these ghost guns? Are they going to haunt me, these ghost guns?
They're going to cause you to shoot somebody.
God,
probably.
these
You're going to find a ghost gun and must mean I'm supposed to shoot someone now. I got a gun.
Wait a minute. There's no serial number on this gun. Oh, it must be a ghost gun.
I can get away with it because I want to shoot somebody.
It's spookier than all other guns. Right. It's spookier than all other guns. It's a ghost gun. It's just
juvenile.
so, and people,
It's just ridiculous. It's like a fairy tale. It's just crazy. That's crazy.
the people who buy it are very stupid.
Someone
people.
today I saw, and again, these generalizations get passed down until they become part of the normal lexicon. Well, we're talking about all these gun owners who figure they can't survive if they don't have a gun. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What, obviously,
well, there's an implication
you have
there.
a gun to be prepared in case something happens. So if something happens and you don't have a gun, you may not survive. So it seems like it's a pretty logical way to go, thinking if you have the gun, you might be able to protect yourself and keep yourself from getting killed.
But that statement right there is typical, and they've been using that for a long time. It's to imply that gun owners are irrational,
but
fearful.
Again, statistically, there's no evidence
Doesn't
for that.
matter. None of that crap matters.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I give up. Poltergeist.
The poltergeist gun.
We're back.
Oh, the red rum guns.
Oh gosh.
So the point on that is it doesn't matter. People will buy the narrative. They'll buy the notion.
Right, but we know that. Okay, so again, what in my mind what always comes up is like, how do you combat something that is that convoluted and that deep rooted in our understanding of how things are? People believe all kinds of things, and I don't know how you talk them out of it.
Well, and that's mostly the stuff that I talk about with like the Good Gun Bad Guy book series, which, by the way, people can get on Amazon or goodgunbadguy.net or goodgunbadguy.com. And the thing that you have to recognize is that the people who believe the anti-gun nonsense are stupid people. They need little bits of information, little chunks of visual things that they can
Right.
understand. So what I try to do is help gun owners understand that if we want to change their minds, being fully indoctrinated into this anti-gun messaging, we have to do it in a way that appeals to them. And a lot of times it's simple chunks, it's simple words. There's no such thing as gun violence, only human violence. And it at least will help them think. Ghost guns don't exist. Help them understand why they're using these terms. Ghost guns, like I said, chunk it down. Ghost guns are used as a tool to scare people into more gun background checks, which ultimately lead to registration.
So do we think that all the like we know that community guns exist, right? So these are probably ghost guns fit in that category, right? Like if I found a gun hidden behind a garbage pail someplace or up in a tree somewhere, I would assume that would be called a ghost gun.
I think what they're talking about, and I think the difference is most, any guns that are manufactured by a major manufacturer, Smith & Wesson, any SIG, any of these Glock, any of these companies will have a serial number on the gun. Right. So that's not a ghost gun. You may have a gun with a serial number that is stolen or illegal. That's not necessarily a ghost gun. I think what they're talking about with ghost guns is no serial number. So in other words, either homemade guns or serial numbers grinded off.
I'm assuming there's a whole industry, right, of making these guns that can't be traced.
There should be.
Well, there has to be, right? I mean, people are making these guns. Obviously.
We should be able to, and this is the craziest thing. To say what I'm about to say, people think you're nuts.
You're nuts.
We should be able to make our own guns by ourselves. Nobody knows, and the government has nothing to say about it. That's the way it's always been. Guns should not be regulated and registered by the government, by which we have the Second Amendment against. The Second Amendment is to limit the government so we, the people, can have whatever means necessary should we need to over leverage the government.
That's the
right. So giving the idea that government needs to know about these guns it goes against the entire premise of the Second Amendment. And this this is the crazy. But you say this stuff now in 2021, and people think you're crazy.
Right. What are you going to overthrow the government?
Yeah.
No, we don't want to overthrow the government.
Not if
but
we
if
don't-
somebody
right.
knocks on my door,
Right. Exactly.
or doesn't knock on my door, breaks through my door.
We've gotten to a place in our culture where people either forget about why we have the Second Amendment or think that we've somehow evolved to a place where we can trust our government.
That's the problem.
Okay.
That's a huge problem. And that filters through everything, right? If you have a whole half of the population that figures, well, we'll just let the government, they'll take care of this, and then I won't have to worry about it. I think part of it is laziness, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to worry about the personal responsibility and accountability aspect of it. So they look at it that way. But we've trained people for the last 50 years to look at things like that and say, okay, government's going to take care of things. But if you dig down a couple levels on any of this stuff, you realize that they don't have our best interest at heart. You know,
No.
Hi, we're from the government, we're here to help. It used to be a warning thing that was a red flag, right? No, you're not helping me. Leave me alone.
Well, look at what Joe Biden said with the F-15s and the nukes and stuff. I mean,
and that has generated a lot of arguments in the last week. Well, what are you going to do? Overthrow the government? I says, you believe the guy with the hat on going in the Capitol on January 6th, they were going to overthrow the Constitution?
they didn't even have guns.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're making your own argument sound ridiculous.
Well, it all does. And the thing is, they can continue to say whatever they want to say, and they just switch positions or they alter their narrative whenever they need to fit the narrative du jour.
Right.
And so they'll always.
The problem is the media doesn't ever go back and say, well, we were wrong about this. Everybody pay attention.
Right.
We were wrong about this.
Right.
Never, ever happens.
Because it's not the media, the left-wing media, which is the majority of the media, doesn't care about actually progressing as a country to and endorsing and supporting our Constitution, Bill of Rights, and getting back to and I use the word progressing very carefully because it instantly gets attached to the left wing, but progressing maybe financially or with manufacturing, with jobs, and progressing and growing, our country growing, I should say. They don't care so much about that and sticking to the Constitution, Bill of Rights as they do supporting the argument or the agenda of the Democrats. Frankly, it's Democrats.
Right. Generating problems endlessly so that they have power over the people that we understand they're going to believe whatever the government says. You only need half the people to do that, and then you're good to go, right? And you import more people every year, and sooner or later you're going to have enough of a majority where nothing good is ever going to happen.
And I think we got a couple more minutes here in this segment. I just want to talk briefly, since we're on the topic of guns. New York Governor Cuomo announces executive order declaring gun violence disaster emergency. This is so stupid, and people believe it. Democratic, and this is from Daily Caller, Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo issued an executive order on gun violence Tuesday declaring it a disaster emergency. Gun violence is a public health crisis, and we must treat it like one, Cuomo wrote on Twitter. This declaration, I'll do the Cuomo voice. This declaration allows us to give the crisis full attention and resources it deserves, he quotes. He said, declaration will allow us to give. New York City was enjoying its lowest crime rate in 6 decades before seeing a huge spike last summer, according to the New York Times. A violent crime wave has continued with shootings up 38% in the first 6 months of 2021 compared to the same time last year. The spike coincides with defunding the police movement's rise in American politics. So the crime is going up because of no police, right? And Cuomo and de Blasio defunding New York police. But yet this is a gun violence epidemic. So again, it's just more stupid crap from stupid people.
It's stupid crap because so often these policies from the left, as I've said before, ignore human motivation. They think that criminals aren't paying attention that, there's less police. I'm just going to stay home and watch TV tonight. It's just so backwards.
Well, he went on to say, and I know we got to wrap it up here, but he went on to say, today I announced a strategy to combat gun violence in both the short and long term using public health approach. And he said something to the effect of, we're going to treat this like we treated the COVID situation. Oh, so lock up your parents and grandparents in the nursing home, because here comes Cuomo again. Now he's going to do something the same approach with guns. So
he's nuts.
He is nuts, and not only that, he's a jerk. And I have other words that other names I could call him, but I'll use jerk because jerk is acceptable. Show. He's a real jerk, and you know what other word I'm trying to say, but and I think that's his whole persona. He wants to treat people with an iron fist, I guess they say.
He's in charge.
Well, he's really not, but he's found a way to have leverage over the people. Right. And he might be in charge to a certain extent, but I think Cuomo would make a really good communist dictator. I agree. Anyway, okay, so we got to take a break. Danny's wrapping us up. Be right back.
I'm Dan Wos Jr., producer of The Loaded Mic. I just wanted to let you know that you can find us at Simul TV, Right America Media, YouTube, and Rumble. You can also find the podcast at Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Or you can go to loadedmic.com. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review.
By now you've heard me talk about MyPillow and how it literally changed my life. They won't go flat. You can wash and dry them as many times as you want, and they maintain their shape. They're made in the USA, and for a limited time, Mike is offering his premium MyPillows for his lowest price ever. You can get a queen-size premium MyPillow for just $29.98, regularly $69.98. It's a $40 savings, and kings are only $5 more. So go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener square, and use the promo code RAM, like RAM. You'll also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the Giza Dream Sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, MyPillow towel sets. You can also call 800-867-0416. That's 800-867-0416. But don't forget to use that promo code RAM. The Second Amendment is a priority at the Loaded Mic. If we don't defend the right to keep and bear arms, there are people who are happy to violate it. The strategies and tactics of the anti-gun crowd and politicians are sinister. We need to understand those tactics. I wrote the Good Gun, Bad Guy book series as the rule book to their evil game, so we can understand their strategies and motives to defeat them. Understand the mindset of the anti-gunner in Book 1. Learn the media strategies behind the gun grab in Book 2. And understand the politics behind their mission in Book 3. Go to goodgunbadguy.com. So we're back. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
There's a few things I want to talk about in this segment. So we're going to talk about Trump.
Oh, good.
Suing big tech, right? And we're going to talk about Biden and his door-to-door vaccines.
That's
vaccine
go over
checks,
well.
right? Yeah, that's going to go over like a fart in church or a lead balloon, or what are some of the other things? Anyway.
Yeah.
Not good.
We get the drift. See where you're going with that.
So, and I also want to talk about the what is it called?
Neiman
Marcus break-in, the looting in San Francisco. First, let's talk about Trump, because I saw the press conference. It was pretty cool. And he said he's going to sue Twitter, Facebook, Google, and their top executives, their CEOs, their founders.
Okay.
I don't know if the guy from Google is the founder, but whatever. So the lawsuit is basically saying you can't restrict First Amendment rights of people if people are on the platform. Because the thing is, this these platforms have now become public square.
That's the argument.
Right. And it's like it's almost at this point in a way telling certain people they can't get on the bus or telling certain people they can't take the train.
Certain people they can't advertise in a newspaper.
That right, exactly. So this is going to be so. Anyway, let's watch that clip. Danny, you got a clip of that? And
today,
we'll see
in conjunction with the America First Policy Institute, I'm filing as the lead class representative a major class action lawsuit against the big tech giants, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, as well as their CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, and Jack Dorsey. Three real nice guys.
Sundar Pichai. Trump's funny.
This is rampant stuff, though. People don't understand it before we get into the particulars of this, because I know Mike Cernovich just had an article removed from Google. Like, if you take the title of his article and search in Google, it will not come up.
Nothing.
If you go to DuckDuck or wherever other search engines and put it in, it comes right up.
There's DuckDuckGo, there's Bing,
right.
there's
so Google has banned his article. So you can search for something that exists, and Google will not show it to you. So that's to the point it's gotten, though, right? As you said, is that public square or what is that?
Yeah. Well, it's like you had a great example. Telling people they can't advertise in the newspaper. Telling people they can't. Nope, sorry, you can't take this bus. What? Are you kidding me?
Well, the argument though you get from other people is like, well, it's a private company; they can do whatever they want. I go, but it's access. It's not just the fact that it's a private company. If I build my whole business by advertising in a local newspaper or on a local radio station for the last 10 years, and then all of a sudden they say, oh, you can't advertise with us anymore. Right. And then the people that are advocating for it say, well, just go start your own radio station, your own newspaper.
Right.
Okay, well, it's access. It's not just, whether I'm baking you a cake or not.
That's right.
I can go get a cake someplace else. I can't go get another, local newspaper has the circulation.
It is access. You're right, because it gives people, now people rely on that so they can have access to other to other people, to businesses, to other things. That's like if you wanted to purchase something on Amazon, but you weren't allowed to. I mean, what the hell is this?
Ghost guns.
The ghost guns. But how you can't, a private business could do that. A private business can say, no, we're not going to serve you for whatever reason, cake, whatever. But at this point, it's not a private business. They've crossed over into another completely different realm of public. I don't want to say public domain, but public service, I guess, right? Isn't it?
It's global access. Billions of people access these networks, and then you say, "Oh, you're the president of the United States. You're saying stuff we don't like." Nobody's going to see what you say.
That is unbelievable. And that alone is going to go down in history. People are going to look back on that and look at it as an amazing thing that happened. How can a private company shut the president down?
Crazy.
So it just shows their power. It also shows their arrogance and their willingness to take a political side.
Right, and
clearly,
and dictate what's true to all the half of the people that we admitted believe whatever these people say.
Right,
it's a complete power trip, but to not see that just shows us how deeply entrenched a lot of these people are in this stuff. Like, don't you think it's unusual that the president of the United States has been banned from all these? Well, he's a terrible person. I don't care if he's freaking Hitler. Right. Like, what the heck is going on here?
Well, they let Islamic terror groups on there.
Well, plus, and the congresswoman there and stuff, all that stuff. People say all kinds of crazy stuff, and nothing ever happens to them.
Right.
And the president says stuff that at least half of us would like to hear, and then these companies just decide, nope, you're out of here. So.
And we have to do this, and Trump has to do this, because not only to protect the free speech of conservatives right now, but also to protect the free speech and accessibility, like you said, to everyone, including Democrats, because Democrats the way this tribal fighting has become is like nobody cares about the future. They just care about winning in the moment.
Dude, this is the whole right.
And this is going to affect Democrats later on down the road. Democrat voters, they think that they're so smart in winning this fight against conservatives. And in some respects they are because of media and stuff. But they're so stupid to believe that because it's going to happen to them. If this continues, thankfully, they should be thanking us, conservatives, because we're going to stop it.
Right.
Hopefully, we're going to stop it.
They can't run timelines. They say, first they came for the Jews, but I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't say anything. That's exactly what this is. It's like, this is again, it's not about the content of, and I say so often to people, just because you don't like a person, back up and look at the process that's going on here. If you think something bad happening to that person is a good thing for society at large, then you're not looking at the big picture, because it could just as well be you. As soon as something else happens and somebody's opinion changes, what you think is important could be thrown out the same as this stuff is being thrown out. It's not good for anybody.
And it most likely will be them. The thing is, we're coming out and we're going to stop it. Probably because, and being the victims of it is probably part of the catalyst, that the reason why we're doing it. But it's going to help everybody, I think.
Long term,
it's going to help.
Care about freedom. It's going to help everybody.
Yeah, that's the thing. Do they really care?
I don't.
Does the average Democrat voter? We know some Democrat voters, unfortunately, and. Do we know? Do you know any? I'm sure maybe.
Yeah.
And
you know more than I do.
Actually, I shouldn't. I have actually some people who I can tolerate who vote Democrat. I can't tolerate their voting habits, but I can somewhat tolerate them in a public, person on a personal level. But do they realize what's really happening, or do they just need to win? And is their hatred for Trump so great that they will do anything and sacrifice their own freedom, their own rights, just to get one over on Trump? Or these conservatives that they now believe are evil incarnate?
Yeah, a horrible guy like Ron DeSantis and stuff. He's a horrible guy, right? He's terrible. But it is derangement syndrome, and but if we could get some of these people to take one step back and take out the hatred for Trump and just look at the process of what's happening, they would say, I wouldn't want that happening to me. But they're not looking at it that way. They're just looking at, we got to do this because I don't like that person, or I don't like that thing. They're very short-sighted.
Well, just some of the stuff on social media. I mean, I see some of the discussions you get in on social media with some of these lunatics, and personally, I don't know how you can tolerate them, but how do they not recognize this stuff? How does your typical Biden supporter not understand what's actually happening here?
Well, I think a part of the reason is because, again, like we said before, they create these boogeyman scenarios where most of these people are never directly affected by any of this stuff. Like, how many Democrat state workers are affected by ghost guns? None. Right. So they're just saying, I'm going to take a moral stand on this. And that's what it all comes down to, is they've been convinced that their stand is morally superior. So when you're morally superior, you can make all kinds of concessions in all kinds of areas, and it makes it really easy to judge other people. Let's make that person the bad person. Let's make that gun the bad thing. Let's make racism the thing we have to fight against and have on the front burner all the time. It's just... It's a really, really shallow way of looking at anything, because it's all, like you said, it's all in the moment, static stuff. It's not dynamic. It doesn't play into the future, and it ignores, again, human motivation in a lot of these situations. They don't know why people are doing things, so they look to blame things. Let's blame the gun. Well, these people have problems over here. Okay, well, but they're using a gun, so we'll blame the gun.
Well, you made a good point. When
I saw a chicken scratch there.
I make notes so I don't forget stuff. The moral superiority. They do believe that they're morally superior because that's what they're taught. They're taught to believe that the decisions they make and the causes they support are for the greater good of humanity. And so they actually believe it. So part of the problem is that their fight and their argument is so fierce because they actually believe that what they're doing is morally.
Well, and what they've been convinced of, and this is why, and again, this is another downside of the going out of fashion of religion in a lot of ways, is that nobody's taught humility. What the media teaches you is that your position is morally superior, and it's your job to judge other people. Yeah. That's the thing. So those people are bad people. Once you convince yourself that those people are bad people, you're off and running, right? Like it's often said. Republicans think that the right thinks people on the left are people with bad ideas. The people on the left think the people on the right are bad people with ideas.
Yeah, good point.
The whole moral thing. Once you inject that moral thing in, then you're self-righteous. Then all the things that the Bible teaches against, there's no humility involved in that. Same with another conversation I was having earlier about people telling other people what they should do. Like, just mind your own business is a good thing, too.
And another aside, or in addition to the way Democrats think they're morally superior, they also believe that they're intellectually superior. This is why they tout their college education, and they always want to talk from a place of authority.
Right, except that when it comes to things like guns, they just ignore the statistics, right? When it comes to all kinds of things, they just ignore the numbers and say, it has to be this because I know I'm morally superior and I'm smarter than you and I'm going to tell you what to do.
But the thing they don't understand is that you can train anybody to memorize stuff. You can go to college. You can take 20 years of college education. It doesn't make you any smarter. You're better at memorizing stuff. You maybe have collected some data. Whether or not that data is true or not is another story. But there's so many times I see these people who think that they're intellectually superior really are very stupid and have no common sense. They don't understand how this stuff applies in the real world and how we use our intelligence and how we use our education to communicate with people, to interact with other people, to live in a society. They don't get that part. That part is like God, but they think that they can speak down to you from a intellectually superior place.
Well, they're not taught wisdom.
Wisdom, that's a good point. You learn stuff.
And then they learn that that's okay to judge other people. So once you know a lot of stuff and you've been taught that it's okay to judge people, you're off and running, baby. Let's go.
So take the intellectually superior and the morally superior notions that a lot of these people have, and you've created a political Frankenstein monster.
And the worst part about it is that when that comes right to the front line of conversations, say on social media, is that what happens is that perspective will never let them argue anything important because they will judge the person right off the bat. This is just cognitive dissonance run amok. Yeah. Well, you don't believe what I believe, therefore you're a bad person. Okay, where do you go with that? How do I fight back against that? I got to start defending myself? You can't play that game, right? You can't go onto their playing field and start fighting face to face because we're trying to talk about ideas here.
Yeah, and their influencers understand that. That's exactly what
big time.
Anyway, okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about. Oh, we got another clip that I want you to see. Okay. Joe Biden. Let me just intro it. Joe Biden has decided. Well, not Joe Biden. I don't think he's decided anything. But the Democrats, his handlers have decided that not enough people are taking this vaccine, the so-called vaccine. Okay. They've already tried bribing people, right? Yep. They've already tried coercing them in, I don't know, all these different ways, right? Giving them lottery tickets and then...
Were they giving them lottery tickets, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was Ohio did it with a $1 million...
Oh, they enter them in the lottery, automatically when you get the vaccine.
Cuomo here in New York did it with a $3 or $5 million lottery. So they're trying every way they possibly can. And although the people are getting their vaccine, there's still a very few people who haven't got the vaccine. It's not a few. Just so people know, it's not a few. There's a lot of people who've decided not to get this vaccine.
And it's at the point now where they're not going to.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what happened. Well, I just talked to my friend from the Dominican Republic out in the parking lot when I was coming in. He said that because Dominican Republic lives on tourism, right? And they haven't been able to let people in because of the vaccine. So now the president is saying, well, when we reach 70% in these certain areas, we're going to open up tourism. So probably August 1st or whatever. The thing of it is that they're going to have to fake the numbers because if you haven't gotten it by now, you're not going to get it, I'm assuming, right?
Right. And they need the rest of the people for whatever their reason is. I have a problem believing it's for the public safety of the people, the personal safety of the people. I have a feeling there's other things involved. Maybe it's the money the pharmaceutical companies are making off this thing. Maybe it's the deals they have with our hired representatives. Who knows? But they need, and they're desperate at this point. You can see it in the way they. So Joe Biden now comes out and says, well, we're going to take a different approach, and we might even have to come to your house. Yeah, well, you come to my house and there's going to be a problem. And a lot of people are saying that across the country. You come to my house and there's going to be a problem. So don't do it. Just for the good of everybody, don't come to my house and try to push a vaccine that I've clearly decided not to get, right? So anyway, so here's Joe Biden hinting at the fact that there may be some sort of registry now and going to, because there's got to be a registry, right? If you're going to houses and you're obviously going to the houses of people who haven't been vaccinated, right? How do you know where these people live? Is the medical industry?
So they're handing out your personal medical information.
Is the medical? I don't know. It's a question.
Or are they just knocking on doors randomly? That could be a good summer job, though. Oh, excuse me. Have you been vaccinated?
Well, how would they know? Anyway, let's play the clip and then we'll talk about it. Danny, can you play that clip, please?
In today's briefing, we discussed how our administration is going to devote the remainder of the summer to a special focus on 5 ways to make gains in getting those of you who are unvaccinated vaccinated. Because here's the deal. We are continuing to wind down the mass vaccination sites that did so much in the spring to rapidly vaccinate those eager to get their first shot and their second shot, for that matter, if they needed a second. Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood.
Why?
And oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
Get help to them. They want to get help to them. These people, they just don't know about this vaccine and its availability. They don't know. They don't understand how serious the Rona is and how they can get help. These people just don't know.
I'm glad I know now. I feel much better. Oh, my God. So when I hear that knock, I'll know it's going. Well, they'll be ringing my doorbell. They won't be knocking.
Oh, my God. Can you believe the arrogance? They want to help. Joe Biden, he used the word help. We want to help you.
It's like Jehovah's Witness knocking on your door. We're here to help you. We're from the government.
I just, so back to the whole registry thing. How would they know what doors to go to?
I have no idea. And who's going to do this? Are they paying people to do this?
And are they going to be representatives of the government, or are they going to be actual government employees? How's that going to work?
Where are they coming from? Who's paying for that?
Yeah.
Tax dollars at work.
Yeah, so I'm going to be paying out of my taxes to have someone in my community represent the government and harass me about taking a shot of what's the word I'm looking for? Untested.
I'll feel safe.
Unapproved is the word I'm looking for. I just don't. I just think they've gone way overboard with this, and it shows you just how desperate they are to get this into everybody's body. Doesn't that make people concerned a little bit? I don't want to be some conspiracy theorist, but they're giving me every reason to say, wait a minute, what the hell are you doing here? This isn't normal. You got a virus with a 99+%
survival rate, right?
Survival recovery.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Now you're coming to door to prevent that little percentage after nobody's even getting anymore. All the numbers have fallen.
Well, plus it doesn't even take into account any bad side effects that there might be from the vaccine.
Oh, it's another
we
thing.
don't know anything about that long term. Argue people all the time. Oh, long term effects. I go, really? What long? Do you have a time machine? Because I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now when I have spike proteins in my brain, or your wife has spike proteins in her ovaries, which might cause a problem, might not cause a problem. We have no way of knowing any of that, but that's kind of the point. We have no way of knowing. So don't act like you know and force people to do stuff. It's kind of tyranny, right? I mean, it's really crossing the boundary, I think.
Well, it's just, people don't really think about it, I guess. I mean, maybe they don't want to know. Maybe they're like, oh, whatever, I'll do whatever the government says.
They can't, but they don't. All they hear is one line. I mean, if most people aren't looking for other information, all they're hearing is what the government and the media is telling them, which is that you should get the vaccine no matter what, blah, blah, blah. And if I should get the vaccine and that's a good thing, therefore I'm looking out into the world, well, if we make it so that everybody can get the vaccine, that'll be even better, right? Has to be. Well, the government's telling me it's true.
If the vaccine works and all these people who've been vaccinated, they're not going to catch it. So what are they worried about?
I was at an outdoor show the other day talking to this guy who I haven't talked to in quite a while, and he's a Democrat, and we don't really get along politically, right? So I was, every time I see him, I'm nice to him, and I was talking to him about different things. And he says, so did you get the vaccine? And I said, no. He says, well, don't stand so close to me then. I go, okay. And I thought about it. I go, I wanted to ask him, did you get the vaccine? Because if you did,
what are you worried about?
You have the vaccine. So what are you worried about here?
Well, they're using the number like 20% of people didn't get it. It's much more than that. It's probably over 50% of people.
Kids, first of all, why would anybody vaccinate their kids?
But so here's my argument: if only a small percentage of these people, like a small amount of people, just still haven't gotten it, we need to help them, right? Well, if it is just a small amount of people, okay, everybody who's got it should be safe, right? If the vaccine works, and then that little group of small people can transfer the virus back and forth to each other amongst themselves. Talk amongst yourselves. And wouldn't that be their choice?
See, that'd be an interesting statistic to look into. Like, how many people who aren't vaccinated, who are associating with each other, have actually contracted the coronavirus? I bet the numbers are way low.
I think this virus is long gone.
I think it's
where is it? Who do you know has got it?
Nobody.
And if they do get it, it's like the flu, right? So they're getting better. Are there any deaths anymore? It's so terrible that they are so desperate. That's what makes me question it. It's their desperation to get everybody vaccinated when we never heard of this before.
Right. And instead of saying, wow, we've made a lot of progress on this. This is so good.
Yeah.
This is the projections for the future.
Yeah.
No, we have to knock on doors and make sure everybody has the vaccine.
Tells me there's something else going
on there. I'm suspicious.
I'm very suspicious. I'm surprised that other people are. Well, I can understand why people who have the vaccination are not suspicious. They don't want to know at this point. They've got it in their body, and they don't want to know.
Well, what they said in California, too, didn't Newsom the other day say that CDC says that kids that are vaccinated don't have to wear masks in school, and California says, no, we're going to make them wear masks anyway because we want everybody to be the same. We don't We don't want kids to feel discriminated against because they have or don't have the vaccination. That just came out yesterday, the day before. It's great.
Now it's a discrimination thing. Anyway, I know many people who've had the vaccine and they hate when I talk about this stuff. But sorry, I'm not buying it at this point. If they're still pushing it with this type of desperation and this type of hype and this type of marketing strategy and propaganda, there's something wrong.
Right.
Something wrong. I don't know what it is. And I don't condemn you for getting the vaccine.
No, but the whole idea of a vaccine is to protect a person against something. So, again, I hate to keep saying it over and over again, mind your own business.
Yeah.
If you're protected, shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not the moral warrior out there that's supposed to change the world and make everything better, but this is what the media has instilled in people's minds. Like, I have to be out there fighting for all this. I have to be on the right side. I just saw some TV show today from 20 years ago where people are standing at a vigil with candles in their hand and stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's making a big difference there.
All right. we're getting close to the end here. I want to make sure I get this last topic in.
Oh, okay, here we go.
This was the Neiman Marcus break-in in San Francisco. So these lunatics go in and they break in Neiman Marcus. Now, I don't know how much these handbags cost. I'm assuming thousands of dollars. This is like really high-end stuff. And you got these freaking looters. What are they going to do with this stuff?
Presents for their girlfriends, I guess. I don't even know were the looters, were they male, female, or a mixture?
I guess we're going to find out. We have a clip. Let's see who they are. Go ahead, Danny.
The crime was captured on cell phone video around 5:45 yesterday afternoon. 9 people can be seen running out of the Neiman Marcus store in San Francisco's Union Square, carrying expensive handbags and getting away. Shoppers say it is upsetting and makes them feel unsafe.
Oh my God.
I feel unsafe.
So
good for property values and stuff, right? People stealing stuff next door, breaking windows. Good deal.
Yeah. So what would happen is, and I think they said, didn't they say that one store across the street? What was that?
It was boarded up with a for lease sign in it, right?
Right. So people are moving out of San Francisco. Now this is Nancy Pelosi's district, as far as I understand, and so people. So let's follow the chain reaction of what happens here. Neiman Marcus,
big high-end store.
People who can afford this stuff should be able to buy it. They enjoy it. Maybe the quality is superior to all other handbags. I don't know. I've never,
right.
Not that I have handbags, but I don't know what the quality is. Anyway, let's assume they're really high quality and good stuff. And people want to buy this stuff. They should be able to. Okay, so these 9 jackasses loot the place like it's a freaking 7-Eleven, right? It's like,
why were they even in there?
I don't know. Well,
window shopping.
If they're looting handbags, they obviously don't have money to put in the handbags. What the hell are they doing with the handbag? Obviously, they're stealing it so they can either resell it or I don't know.
It's the mysteries of the criminal mind. And
why would you? Anyway, to the Robin Neiman Marcus, the place across the street goes out of business. What happens in Neiman Marcus? They say, okay, we just lost 9 handbags. How much are they a piece? I don't know. What are they? Up to $5,000. They could be probably a piece. So let's say, they could have looted out $50,000 worth of handbags. Who knows? That's a significant loss, right?
On its own.
Right.
Just on its own.
So how much does a company have to tolerate? How much of that do they have to tolerate before they say, screw you, we're getting out of here. You don't have the cops here because you defunded them.
Right.
You're letting these animals run wild and loot businesses. We're out of here. So then what happens to the city?
Everything goes down.
No, those jobs are lost. The business is boarded up. Graffiti, and the dirt bags come in and start taking over the city. It's a terrible shame with such a good potential for.
Right. And that's where leadership comes in, right? I mean, when you got to clean up a city, it's a leader that comes in and cleans the city up, like Giuliani did with New York City. I mean, love him or hate him, whatever, he definitely made a gigantic difference. And that's what we need in some of these places, is somebody to come in and say, well, hopefully...
Curtis Lua, I think.
Curtis Lua, well, he's not going to win. But the other guy even is at least the next cop, right, in New York City. I mean, at least he hopefully might do something to put some different ideas in people's heads. I don't know. Is Leva going to win? What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't followed that close enough. So Danny's wrapping us up, but we will, maybe next week we'll talk about it.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks for watching A Loaded Mic on YouTube, Rumble, Simul TV, and Right America Media. You can also catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, whatever your favorite podcast app is, we're there. I'm Dan Wos, and the Second Amendment is not a privilege, it's your right.
Hey, everybody, this is the Counterculture Mom Show, helping you safely navigate the pop culture chaos. I'm your wild host, Tina Griffin. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Main theme of today's show, as you know, is redeeming patriotism and a love for America, the red, white, and blue. And I'm with friend and fellow patriot, Lucas Miles. Lucas, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too. And I just saw you at your book signing in Nashville. You were signing autographs on the book, and you gave a great message about patriotism and waking up the church. There's so much that you do. And I also just recently saw you in Dallas at the National Religious Broadcasters event. You were there all week doing about 58 interviews. I just have to tell you.
It was a wild week.
Okay, Lucas, I am not stalking you, okay? We just happen to be at a lot of the same events. Just so you're aware, I'm not a stalker, okay?
I wouldn't mind if you were, Tina. I wouldn't mind if you were.
I just remember the first time I met you 2 or 3 years ago at NRB, I'm like, man, he looks familiar. And I knew why, because I checked out your website. We'll get to it in a minute. You have one of the best websites with resources I've ever seen. In fact, you're like the model of what I want mine to look like when the time happens.
Well, thank you.
You're just phenomenal. Now, I want to let people know with this 4th of July special why you're on 4th of July. To me, you represent fighting for our freedoms, waking up America, not being a benchwarmer Christian. The second I knew this was going to air on 4th of July, I said, Lucas Miles. I mean, hello. And I had your number because I was, stalking you. So I am so happy that the word is getting out in the street about your brand new book, which we're going to talk about here. It's called The Christian Left. Everyone needs to get a copy. People tuning in, Lucas Miles, dear friend of mine, is host of Faith Wire's The Lucas Miles Show, co-host of the Church Boys podcast. You're the author of the critically acclaimed book, Good God, the One We Want to Believe in but Are Afraid to Embrace. Wow. You're an ordained pastor with over 20 years of ministry experience. You've been involved in dozens of church planting around the globe. Thank you for your tenacity and your diligence and your hard work ethic. And of course, you have a local ministry, Influence Church, where you and your wife, Chrissy, have been serving since planting the church in 2004. You've been married since 2001, reside in Granger, Indiana for the 3 days out of the year. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. It's always great to connect with you. And we've been able to see each other, as you mentioned, a few times here recently. Rather than just the once a year that I see everybody at the National Religious Broadcasters. So that's been great. So one of the many benefits of being on the road. And I just appreciate what you're doing. I just think that this work is so important, and especially educating parents and families, about the dangers that are out there, as well as the opportunities to be able to live for Christ in the midst of it. So appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. Now, the first question right out of the gate, I had to throw you a curveball on the 4th of July here. What haven't you done? Can you tell me what you haven't done? You are one of the most on fire Christian people I know, and I'm not just saying that.
I appreciate that. You know what? It's been a pretty wild journey. I mean, as you mentioned, I've done a lot of work in the church. I still pastor. I have a couple bigger things that I, am still they're on the bucket list. Like right now, maybe he'll hear this. I really want to do the Glenn Beck show. I've never done it. And I want to talk to him about the issues of the Christian left. I just think it's gonna be a great conversation. But I've just been really blessed. I have a great team around me. You got to meet some of them here recently. They really helped me do more with really less time. And so whether it's in the film world, the church world, media, politics, I've just been really honored to be able to do what I do. I got to go to right before Trump left office. I got to go to the White House for the first time, which was pretty awesome. And so got kind of a tour there and got to connect with a few people while we were there. But it was it's cool. So, but I don't live in the past. It's onwards and upwards. We got stuff to do, and it's great to celebrate the wins, for a moment. But I got saved by grace through faith. I'm a radical grace guy, but grace didn't come into my life just to have me do nothing and just sit back. I'm here to really complete the task. And, Paul talks about being poured out like a drink offering. Basically, I don't want to leave anything in the tank, when I leave this world. And so I'm excited and honored just to be able to do the work that we do.
Oh man, so well said. I told the Lord when I became a Christian at 16 years old, I would not be a benchwarmer Christian. I'd be willing to take a bullet for the cause. And I meant it. And so same here for 3 decades. I think that's why when I first met you, I knew you were the real deal. I really did. There's a lot of people that say they're Christians, and we can get on this little sidetrack here, but you're not. You are who you say you are. You share your imperfections. That makes you real, raw, and it makes people draw towards you. So digging deep in here on the 4th of July and what independence means, you know as well as I know, so many people are being brainwashed by today's mainstream media. They're being brainwashed in our public education system. They don't even know why we have a 4th of July besides fireworks and candy and parades. So to dig in deep, we just had Curtis Bowers on in the previous show, and he talked about his agenda movies and who's really behind all of that and how many decades ago it first started with the brainwashing going on, primarily in mainstream media, Hollywood, education system, to indoctrinate our young, who should be patriotic, God-fearing, American-fearing people. You are going to share with us today, it's not just a problem in Hollywood and in our culture. It's a major problem in our churches. So thank you for talking about a very tough subject, because you probably get the heat. And I know what that feels like, and you know what that feels like. And yet when we get the heat, we know what we're doing is right and what God wants us to share. So with that said, I want to have people know exactly what you talk about with the issues of the leftist agenda in our churches, so people can be educated today on how do we fight this and how do we be on the offense and not the defense. So digging in deep with your new book, which I'm going to show people right here in the show notes, click on the TV options so you can see what we're talking about. But this is your new book, The Christian Left. Love the design, love what it looks like, how liberal thought has hijacked the church. I'm so thankful that you put that book together. Define what you mean by the Christian left.
Yeah, so the Christian left is a what I would refer to as a growing constituency of left-leaning Christians, and sometimes Christians in name only, who have become infatuated with progressive ideology, progressive philosophers like, Kant, Hegel, Marx, etc. Even if they don't know those names and they've not been educated enough to know all those philosophical bullet points, they're still enamored by the impact that philosophy has made in the world. And I think they've also embraced many times social justice, liberation theology, which is really a form of Christianity and Marxism combined, and of course, critical theory and critical race theory, what we're seeing today. These individuals are really earmarked by a diminished view of Scripture, a downgraded view of the Bible. They see the Bible as something less than the Word of God, something less than inspired, something less than authoritative in their life, which allows them to be able to venture out into some anti-biblical ideas and still put a Christian stamp on those. As long as you hold Scripture as first place in your life and you hold it as authoritative, it's really hard to get into heresy. You might have a couple things that you misunderstand or navigate poorly, but typically the Word will bring you back. But what we're seeing with the Christian left is they're unapologetic. People are trying to fight kind of argue and debate them based upon using Scripture, and they're just like, we don't care what that says. That's not our authority anymore. Experience or something else has now taken that place, and so all of this leads to people who have really stepped away from the gospel as presented by church history for the last 2,000 years and by Scripture, and they're entering into what I call these divergent dark waters of progressive Christianity.
So well said. I live in Nashville, and we have churches in our area that are embracing Black Lives Matter, socialism, Marxism, right there from the pulpit. And I am telling people, talk to your pastor, because of course, if they're just misinformed or they don't know how certain things came across, that's one step. And if they have an open heart, they'll make the time to listen and change their tune or say it a different way. But you also have a lot of churches that are purposely sharing this content. What would you say to the pastors tuning in right now? And since you're one yourself, you have this very good in-depth firsthand knowledge of this. And to the people tuning in right now, watching this thinking, oh man, my pastor just shouldn't have said what they said last Sunday. How do people approach a pastor and say, hey, we've got to get this out of the church in a loving, accepting, easy to deliver message where pastors will listen?
Yeah, I mean, first, let me say this, and I haven't shared this on any other interview, so you've heard it here first, probably get myself in trouble. But I actually grew up with some sort of, I was fairly enamored by socialism and communism. I loved listening to old music. I was, You could almost always find me listening to the Beatles, the Doors, some of these older bands, and, was reading John Lennon, biographies at a pretty young age, 15, 16 years old. And although I was a Christian, I actually started preaching at 17. During my younger years, I wouldn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. I was very non-patriotic. And I appreciated people. My dad was in the military. I had a value for people that served. But I also had this weird blend of impacted by pop culture, really impacted by the church. I wanted to have this allegiance to Christ, and I was afraid of committing any sort of thing that sounded like allegiance to anything other than Christ. And so the Pledge of Allegiance, I was allegiant to God, not to the state, in that sense. So I wanted to elevate Christ in that sense and not the state. And I struggled with that. I actually wrestled with that for a while. And so I'm sympathetic towards individuals on the left that I think are wanting to do the right thing. Some of the Christian left, although I'm very hard on that kind of militant percentage of them, there's some on the Christian left that they look at the apathy of the church today. They want to do something to help the world, and they feel like they have a choice between being this hands and feet kind of let's get something done that they see of this bleeding heart of the left, and then also choosing between that and biblical authority.
Yeah.
And they feel torn. And so after a while, they want to change the world so bad, they're willing to let go of biblical authority or biblical infallibility for the sake of doing something. And that we can walk in him, and we don't have to choose between biblical authority and being the hands and feet of the gospel. We can do both, but it will always be rooted in grace and truth. And that's something that the left has missed. They've missed this element of truth. They're willing to uplift acceptance and do you like me above, actually walking in truth. And we don't get that choice as believers. And so as I grew older, I've traveled to 25 countries. I've seen this world. I've had guns pointed at me in other countries. I've been assaulted 3 times. We live on in the greatest country on this planet.
Absolutely.
And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so thankful for this nation, those that have led the way, those that have given their lives, their service. I'm honored to do that. And I want to carry on that vision. America's a great country, not because America's a great country. America's a great country because there are those that had a vision for how the gospel could impact a nation. And we have our blemishes in the past. And, I think that those have been corrected. I mean, that's the amazing thing. America corrected its blemishes really fast. And yeah, we could talk about years that things were problems, but when you look at other civilizations, those things went on for thousands of years. We dealt with it. The gospel dealt with it. People like, William Wilberforce and other Christians who stood up, and impacted this nation along the way, and various pastors and preachers. We have just such a tremendous nation that's been built here. And me as a believer, I want to see it continue. I'm committed to using the pulpit to share truth, and to share truth in a way that impacts the individual and that also impacts the masses. You cannot talk about changing the nation for Christ without also looking at every dimension of this country, including the political dimension. And for pastors that are unwilling to talk about politics or political issues, I think it's a mistake. And I would just encourage them to rethink that and get some great resources in their hands to be able to navigate it.
That was so well said, and I couldn't agree more. In fact, the churches that have addressed things that are political, which really are also very black and white in scripture for me, are reasons why their churches exploded in the last 2 years. And when you shared that heart to heart at your autographed book signing deal in Nashville 2 months ago, I was thinking, if you were a pastor in Nashville, I would be in your front row. Because because you spoke truth in love. And so you talked about the leftist agenda. A lot of times truth is not there, and you're absolutely correct. But our side with Christians, we have truth a lot of times and no love.
Yeah, for sure.
And I can attest over the years, I probably give myself a C. I'm always giving myself grades every time I do a podcast. C-, D+. Here I homeschool my kids on the love I have when I first started speaking, because I was so passionate to get the truth out there that I forgot, not growing up in these different environments, these different situations. Now, over the last 20 years, hearing hundreds and hundreds of teens share with me their struggles or difficulties, but still wanting truth from me, I've added a lot of love. And I've realized over the years that when we have truth and love, like you full well know, people are more receptive to the gospel, more receptive to who Jesus is, because they have a falsified view of who Christ actually is.
There's a story in scripture when Paul first started his ministry. It says that he would go around, and as he came to the church, he would prove and he would debate, and it uses this kind of like, argumentative sort of language. And eventually they had to send him out of the area because so many people wanted to kill him. And it says that after he left, then the church enjoyed a time of peace. And we see that transform in Paul's ministry. It's the only time that happened. He then went and spent time with Barnabas, and Barnabas ministered to him, and I think taught him how to take this zeal and really apply love to it in a way that he was struggling to before. And so the way that I believe we do that is we maintain our zeal, but we do it through a lens of how grace has impacted our life. And so therefore I never get into judgment, even though I'm writing, I got the book, The Christian Left, right? I'm writing this, I'm attacking the ideology of liberalism and Marxism and all the socialist thinking. I'm attacking that ideology, but I love those people and I love them so much. I'm willing to say the hard thing, the truthful thing. And I would be willing to sit with anybody who would listen and talk through this and love them. I'm not just here to fight and debate. And I think that if we can keep that mindset, we're going to see people's hearts transform.
That is so well said. And that's a thing that I think a lot of people are realizing we don't really have much in our culture anymore, is debate and discussion and conversation. But after COVID, it's civil. That's just it. Let's not start something on fire physically, literally. Let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about these things.
I live in downtown South Bend. I'm in Indiana. It is a red state, blue county. And, I have probably 4 or 5 churches within a very small radius around my office here. I'm right in the center of town that are flying rainbow flags or Marxist BLM flags above the crosses at their church right now. Some places I've seen even have started coloring their cross with some sort of rainbow color or Marxist, coloring, to be able to show their support of these things. Let me, be clear. I don't even want a cross that's red, white, and blue, right? I want, the cross, and that is Christ himself. I'm thankful I live in America. It's a beautiful country. I'm going to celebrate that freedom here on the 4th of July, and I am celebrating that with everybody watching. But at the same time, it is, we have to make sure that the gospel is, as believers, the central aspect to our reality and who we are, that comes first. I'm a Christian first, American second. And I think that if we can learn to kind of walk in love towards each other, a balanced view, a true view of love. God is love, right? And what is God? God is made up of, he came in grace and truth. So if I don't believe that I'm sinful, if I think I'm born without sin, I live my life without sin, then why do I need a savior?
Absolutely.
The left has done away with the need for the cross or the need for Jesus because they don't believe that there's sin in their life that actually needs dealt with.
That's so true. And a sin is a sin. We're not perfect, but right now, mainstream media, our culture is embracing that lifestyle. LGBTQ, we had a guest on that was a transgender for 8 years in the last episode and was freed from that. But a sin is a sin. How can we love everyone? Because until someone shared with me, I was headed down the wrong path. And I thought that I had it all figured out. So, man, while you were talking, you were inspiring me with something that just literally happened 2 hours ago. I'm here in Savannah, Georgia with my husband on a getaway trip. I went to an amazing store. I definitely need a wardrobe. You probably said, yeah, I saw you at NRB last week. You need some help. But regardless, the second I went in there.
I saw at NRB last week is I was mad you didn't bring your husband because I like him.
I know. Yes,
I'll bring him.
Well, it's getting to be that point where people are now like, okay, Tina, great. I got to see again. Where's Luke? I'm like, seriously? We were friends for 32 years. You want to know? So yeah, Luke's taking over my phone and friends and all that stuff. And so people tuning in, with what Lucas shared today, let me tell you something. We have got to be engaged in the culture, sharing truth and love, and leading people to Christ. And when people see the true intention of why we're sharing about our faith and love in the Lord, it will be hard for them to think that we're doing it in a hateful manner or doing it for the wrong reason. We cannot judge. I love that. So, okay, so one thing in your study of the Christian left, do you feel that this is a new phenomenon, or has Christianity experienced this before?
Yeah, so we've certainly experienced this before. There's an interesting quote I've brought out a couple times. So there's a church father named Irenaeus. He was in 180 AD, so about 150 years after Christ. He wrote a book called Against Heresies. And in the book, he said that he was kind of critiquing the first century church. He's in the second century church. And he's saying the reason why the first century church struggled to refute Gnosticism is because they didn't understand it fully. And so he goes basically to say, if we want to learn how to, if we want to refute Gnosticism here in the second century, we have to understand it. He wrote a 600-page book kind of breaking it down, all the belief systems. I think a lot of Christians don't understand socialism, progressivism. They don't understand the LGBT, world. They don't understand what's going on. We make a lot of assumptions from a distance. We think we know, and it's really hard to actually break through to somebody. You're talking about kind of practically going into a clothing store, and how do you minister to people that are in there? I think you need to be aware, to be able to do that. It's one of the reasons I made this, created this book, The Christian Left, is I wanted to give people tools and resources to be able to engage with society, because this is what people are talking about. This is how they're living, thinking, to really equip them to be able to sort through some of these arguments and understanding, to break that down. And sometimes, like in a situation practically, the best way to start with somebody, especially if it's a stranger, is just say, hey, you know what? I travel a lot, or I'm on the go all the time. And one thing I always try to do every day is ask one person a day how I can be praying for them. Is there anything going on in your life right now? I'm a Christian. I just want to let you know, is there anything I can pray for you about? And that's sometimes just a very easy way to introduce somebody. It feels random. It feels like this is just, I feel inspired right now to do this. It's not centering them out based upon, their hair color or their ideology or their skin color or something like that. And it's just how God prompts your heart for somebody. It might be somebody next to you on an airplane, or somebody at a gas station, or somebody at the grocery store. And that's something that I've tried to do on a consistent basis, is just ask people questions like that. What I find is it doesn't stay there. It always goes into further conversation, or we end up becoming Facebook friends, or I'm able to share with them further. But, we only get these moments with strangers that we interact with. And so that's a practical thing. But I think even more so, we all have people in our lives that have been impacted by this progressive ideology. Even if we have, we might have ourselves as well, but even if we haven't, we know people who have been. And so it's so important that we educate ourselves in this way, we understand it, and we learn how to refute it in order to really be able to help people experience the freedom of the gospel, and so that the freedom that this country offers can continue. Because I believe that we are in danger if we continue to see the trend towards socialism in this nation. We might not have these liberties. We'll still have our freedom given to us by God. That can't be taken away by anybody. But it doesn't mean we're always going to have liberties from a human standpoint within this nation. And so it's so important, especially as we celebrate this 4th of July, to really take the time to equip our hearts to be able to be an agent of change in this world for the sake of the gospel.
Everybody tuning in, Lucas is the real deal. He really has challenged me in the last 30 minutes in this interview to think differently, to have more ideas. I even gave my number out to a girl that was serving us last night for dinner because of personal things that was going on with her. I could totally tell she was frazzled. And within a 20-minute conversation throughout that dinner, she now has my phone number. And I want people, it makes me feel like I'm doing what God's called me to do, because people took the time to listen to me over the years when I was down in the dumps and needed advice and a hug. And with COVID, people need that now more than ever. Yeah, Lucas, true. It is a pleasure to call you a friend. It really is. Everybody tuning in, watching this, share this episode. Talk to a friend that you know needs God right now. Share this episode with them so they can tune in. Definitely get the book, The Christian Left. You have to get it. Get 2 copies and give one to your pastor. Get 10 copies and give them away to your neighbors across the street. Check out his website, lucasmiles.org, LUCASMILES.org. Check out the show notes. Click on it where it says get your book here, and you will get a discount for the Counterculture Mom Posse who's tuning in from whatever platform you're tuning in on. Lucas, that book has to be read by everybody, pastors included. Check out the helpful links around the show. Share it with everybody. Download the Counterculture Mom app. You'll get more information about his amazing book in our app. Click on Premium to get all the dirt. And if you'd like to donate to our ministry, you can text the word donate to the number 55444. May we never take our freedom for granted. Lucas, Miles, high five from Savannah, Georgia, buddy. Keep the good work up. And I'm sure I'm going to see you on a future flight in the next week or two.
Sounds good.
Go out there and make a difference, Lucas. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. Share the show, and happy 4th of July.
People don't know that the Federal Reserve and IRS are privately owned, turning people into debt slaves. Why do the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Wealthy people know the laws that govern money. That is why Right On Radio started an online school teaching how to create wealth through stewardship. Learn the 3 simple secrets of the elite that have worked for centuries. Visit rightonu.podia.com. That's right on the letter U.podia, spelled Podia.com. Start creating wealth today. Save 40% by using promo code TINA.